We are living in a mysterious world, one with no beginning and no end in sight. But there is an archipelago where people claim it to be the very edge of the Earth. In the middle of the vast North Atlantic, there lies an archipelago of 18 volcanic islands rising from the water. Here, sheep outnumber people, and the weather changes 4 times in an hour. Welcome to the Faroe Islands, one of the most isolated and untouched places on Earth, the end of the world. Living in the Faroes is not for everyone. It is a choice to immerse oneself in nature in its most primitive and fierce form. The economy and life in the Faroes are deeply tied to the ocean. Fish accounts for over 90% of the island's exports. Here, people don't talk about buying food. They talk about hunting and harvesting from Mother Nature. Each season of the year brings its own unique resources. The Faroes respect nature's cycles and take only what they need to sustain life. Although under Danish sovereignty, the Faroes have their own language, national flag, and a fiercely independent culture. The Faroes language was once at risk of disappearing, but it is now reviving stronger than ever, thanks to the pride of the younger generation. When they dance, they aren't just entertaining themselves. They are connecting with their ancestors, the first Vikings who set foot on this land more than 1,000 years ago. The Faroe Islands, located in the North Atlantic Ocean between Norway and Iceland, are likened to one of the world's best-kept secrets. This place possesses unique features that you can hardly find in any other country or territory. The number of sheep outnumbers the human population. The name Faroe in Old Norse means islands of sheep. There are about over 80,000 sheep on the islands, while the human population is a mere 54,000. Sheep here appear everywhere, from steep cliffs right by the sea to casually strolling on highways. In fact, back in 2016, the locals even created their own sheep view system before Google Maps officially covered the entire archipelago. Infrastructure miracle, the world's first underwater roundabout. The Faroes possess an incredibly modern transportation infrastructure system to connect the islands. They have dug numerous massive subsea tunnels. The most prominent is the Eysturoy Tunnel, Eysturoy Arendalen, stretching over 11 kilometers and connecting 2 major islands. At the intersection, deep beneath the ocean, at a depth of nearly 190 meters below sea level, They constructed the world's first underwater traffic roundabout. This roundabout is decorated with a vibrant, color-changing LED lighting system and sculptural artworks, turning an engineering marvel into a spectacular tourist attraction. Four seasons in 1 hour. Weather and no native woody trees. Due to its location between warm ocean currents and Arctic cold air masses, the weather in the Faroes changes at a dizzying pace. It can be blazing hot, then thick fog suddenly rolls in, followed by pouring rain and howling winds, all within a matter of minutes. The winds in the Faroes are so ferocious that large woody trees cannot grow naturally here. There are only a few small parks planted and meticulously cared for by humans. The dominant landscape of the Faroes consists of mountain slopes covered in a lush, velvet soft green carpet of grass. Lush green turf roofs, grass roofs. When visiting villages in the Faroes, you will be struck by the wooden houses, painted in jet black or vibrant colors, topped with a lush green carpet of grass. This is not for decoration, but a traditional architectural style dating back to the Viking era. The layer of soil and grass on the roof acts as an excellent natural insulator, keeping the indoors warm during freezing winters and withstanding the harsh rainstorms of the North Atlantic. The floating lake above the ocean. This is one of the most iconic natural wonders of the Faroes. Lake Sørvágsvatn sits right at the edge of the coastal cliffs. Due to an optical illusion, when viewed from above, the lake appears to be hovering hundreds of meters directly over the crashing ocean waves below. At the end of the lake, the water cascades straight into the sea through a majestic waterfall called Bosdala Fossur. The gateway to heaven, Drangarnir and Tindhólmur Island. This is a monumental cluster of basalt sea stacks, rising defiantly from the heart of a windswept ocean. Drangarnir, a colossal natural stone archway emerging from the deep. On days when the sea falls silent, small vessels can navigate through its towering vault. It possesses an ethereal, otherworldly beauty. Both majestic and profoundly desolate, making it a legendary sanctuary for photographers across the globe. Tindhólmur. Resting just beside Drangarnir lies the uninhabited islet of Tindhólmur. Its bizarre silhouette features 5 jagged vertical peaks piercing the sky, resembling the forgotten watchtowers of an ancient abandoned castle. The Kalur Lighthouse on Kalsoy Island. This iconic landmark once served as a dramatic backdrop in the acclaimed James Bond cinematic masterpiece, No Time to Die. Perched in utter solitude on the edge of a narrow, precipitous cliff, blanketed in vibrant green grass, stands the small white lighthouse. From this vantage point, a breathtaking 360-degree panorama unfolds. The rugged, undulating mountain ridges of neighboring islands plunge dramatically into the abyss of the sea, while ethereal mists dance around the jagged peaks and ferocious waves roar relentlessly far below. The Vestmanna Sea Cliffs, situated on the western shores of Strimoy Island. This is a sanctuary of monolithic stone walls that tower hundreds of meters into the sky. The magnitude. The only way to truly grasp the scale of this natural wonder is by boat, navigating through narrow straits, venturing into shadowed sea caves, and drifting directly beneath the gaze of these sheer, dizzying precipices. This remote fortress provides a safe haven for millions of seabirds, including Atlantic puffins and razorbills. Here, the relentless thundering of waves against the stone merges with the echoing cries of the flock, composing a wild, overwhelming symphony of nature. Mykon's Island, the realm of the puffins. Anchored at the westernmost frontier of the archipelago, Mykonos stands as one of the most isolated and untouched sanctuaries on Earth. The entire island is a true kingdom of the skies. Every summer, thousands of Atlantic puffins, distinguished by their brilliantly colored beaks and charming demeanor, blanket the coastal cliffs. This raw, untamed wilderness, juxtaposed with traditional turf-roofed cottages blanketed in moss, creates a landscape of breathtaking, fairy tale-like beauty. The only airport with a runway. Between the sea and mountains, Vagar Airport is the sole airport of the archipelago. Upon landing, passengers will experience a thrilling sensation as the runway is situated right on a narrow strip of land surrounded by rocky valleys and dense fog. Taking off and landing here requires pilots to hold a highly specialized training certification due to the unpredictable and ferocious wind conditions. An isolated culture and the medieval circle dance. Due to their isolated location, the Faroes have preserved ancient cultural traits that other Nordic countries have long lost. An ancient language. The Faroes language is one of the most intact and well-preserved descendants of the Old Norse spoken by the Vikings. The Faroe chain dance. This traditional dance does not use any musical instruments. Instead, people hold hands in a long circle, moving and keeping time entirely by chanting ancient ballads that span hundreds of verses, recounting tales of history and gods. The culture and character of the people in the Faroe Islands are a unique blend of ancient Viking resilience and the civilized, peaceful lifestyle of modern Nordic society. Living amidst harsh and isolated nature, the people here have forged incredibly distinctive character traits and customs. The go-with-the-weather philosophy of life, Kanska. In the Faroes, there is an iconic catchphrase, Kanska, which means maybe. Because the weather is so erratic, the Faroes never make rigid plans. If you arrange to meet someone, the answer is often, "We will meet tomorrow, Kanska," weather permitting. Instead of getting frustrated by adversity, they learn to coexist with it. They possess a calm, easygoing, and unhurried mindset, accepting that humans must always adapt to nature rather than try to control it. Absolute safety and mutual trust. The Faroes boast one of the lowest crime rates in the world. Life here is so safe that locals never lock the doors to their homes or cars. The Prime Minister of the Faroes can casually walk down the street or sit down for a coffee in the capital city of Tórshavn without any bodyguards. In rural villages, you will come across roadside honesty stalls. People leave their produce, eggs, or jam there alongside a small box. Buyers pick up what they want and voluntarily put money into the box or scan a QR code to transfer the payment. Tight-knit community spirit, Heimavirki. With such a small population, almost everyone on the islands is related or knows one another. Neighborhood relationships here are as strong as an extended family. When a family builds a house, the entire village will show up to help without taking a single penny in wages. If someone encounters trouble at sea or gets lost in the foggy mountains, the volunteer rescue team, who are just ordinary citizens, will instantly drop what they are doing to set out and help. Here, geographical isolation does not make them lonely. On the contrary, it forces them to warm one another with human kindness. Versatile and deeply grounded in manual labor. Even though Faroese society today is prosperous and modern, with per capita income ranking among the world's top, its people never hesitate to do manual work. A man can be a lawyer, a teacher, or a programmer during the day, but come the weekend, he is ready to pull on overalls to head out to sea for fishing, mow grass, or round up sheep on the mountainsides. Faroes women are famous for their wool knitting craftsmanship. Their hand-knitted classic patterned sweaters are not just warm clothing, but also pieces of art, a cultural pride handed down through generations. The Faroe Islands boast one of the highest standards of living, alongside world-class wealth and social welfare, on par with other Nordic nations like Denmark or Norway. Despite being an isolated archipelago, the Faroes' economy is highly developed, driven by its fish export industry, especially salmon, high average income. The average income of the Faroes people ranks among the highest in the world. The disposable income of an ordinary worker is fully sufficient to afford a comfortable life, a private home, and a car. near zero unemployment rate, the Faroes consistently maintain an extremely low unemployment rate, typically below 1%. Virtually everyone of working age is employed. If they do not work in corporate offices, locals can engage in the fishing, aquaculture, or seafood processing industries. Cost of living, exorbitant. Hand in hand with high incomes comes a wallet-burning cost of living for tourists, as the vast majority of goods here must be imported by sea or air from Denmark. Items such as fresh fruits, vegetables, milk, beef, chicken, and consumer goods carry hefty price tags. Conversely, fresh fish and local mutton are much more accessible. Dining and services. Eating out at restaurants in the capital, Tórshavn, is very expensive. Even a casual meal can easily cost several dozen dollars. Renting or buying a home in the capital city of Tórshavn has surged in recent years due to limited land availability and high demand. However, in more remote villages, these costs are much more manageable. Nordic-style social welfare. As an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark, the Faroes implement a comprehensive Nordic welfare model. Free health care. The public health care system is entirely tax-funded. Citizens receive high-quality medical care without having to worry about hospital bills. Free education. The education system, from primary school up to the University of the Faroe Islands, is completely free. The government also provides grants and preferential loans for students studying abroad, most commonly in Denmark. Social security system, unemployment benefits, maternity leave allowances, and pensions are well guaranteed, helping to narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. Faroese society enjoys a very high level of equality, with virtually no homelessness or extreme poverty. Modern infrastructure to every single corner. Despite living on remote and isolated islands, the Faroes do not suffer from a lack of modern amenities. Free public transportation. In the capital city of Tórshavn, the Red Public bus system is completely free of charge for both locals and tourists. Blazing fast 5G/4G internet connection. High-speed mobile and internet coverage blankets all 18 islands. You can even browse the web smoothly while traveling through subsea tunnels hundreds of meters deep or hiking foggy mountain peaks. In the heart of the tempestuous North Atlantic, there lies an archipelago of volcanic islands rising with fierce pride. More than 1,000 years ago, this was an unnamed, desolate land. The very first settlers who set foot here in the 6th century did not carry swords or spears. Instead, they were Irish monks seeking spiritual tranquility. They brought the first sheep, laying the foundation for the name Faroe, the Islands of Sheep. But history truly turned a new page in the 9th century, when Viking warriors rode the crashing waves and landed on the shores. They fled tyranny back home in Norway in search of freedom. On the narrow strip of land called Tinganes, they established the Lugding, one of the oldest functioning parliaments in the world today. However, that freedom did not last. By the 14th century, the Faroes fell under the control of the Kingdom of Denmark. For centuries, harsh trade monopolies isolated the islands, turning the lives of the locals into a grueling struggle for self-sufficient survival. The unexpected turning point in history came in 1940. Amidst the flames of World War II, Denmark was occupied by Nazi Germany. Instantly, British troops landed in the Faroes in a peaceful occupation to protect this strategic maritime region. 5 years of separation from Denmark were 5 years during which the Faroes steered their own destiny. They built their very first airport, introduced their own currency, and the flame for independence was ignited more fiercely than ever. Consequently, in 1948, the Home Rule Act was signed. The Faroes officially became an autonomous nation, boasting its own laws, its own language, and an independent national identity. In 1973, when Denmark joined the European Union, the Faroes resolutely refused to enter in order to protect their territorial waters and vital fish stocks. Today, from a secluded and impoverished archipelago, the Faroes have risen to become one of the most modern and affluent nations in the world. Having weathered the storms of history, the Faroes people still stand strong, peaceful, resilient, and proud, just like the ancient cliffs confronting the ocean. When the twilight settles over the turf roofs, life in the Faroes returns to its primitive tranquility. Amidst a fast-spinning, hectic, and noisy world out there, this secluded archipelago still chooses its own distinct path. They do not race against time. They learn to listen to the breath of the ocean. Living in the Faroes, after all, is not about humans conquering fierce nature, but about learning humility to become one with it. A tiny strip of land in the middle of a vast ocean, yet it shelters the most resilient and heartwarming souls. The end of the world, as it turns out, is where people find the most authentic values of life. In the heart of the North Atlantic, the Faroe Islands emerge as a small, resilient speck on the global map. A realm forged by basalt rock, moss-covered pastures, and unrelenting ocean storms. For centuries, the survival and economy of this archipelago have rested entirely upon the shoulders of men. The fishermen who spend their lives braving the open seas aboard distant vessels. Yet, while men ventured forth to conquer the deep, who remained to ensure these villages were not simply swept away into history by the relentless sea winds. The answer lies with the women. In the Faroe Islands, there exists a unique kind of solitude, the loneliness of the mainland. When the fishing fleets vanish past the horizon, the villages are left entirely to the women, the children, and the elderly. Yet, Faroese women carry the bloodline of ancient Vikings. Resilient and profoundly independent, they have learned to embrace the stillness. They govern the households, tend to the homesteads, and raise their children to survive amidst the harsh elements of nature. Yet, as the islands crossed the threshold of the 21st century, a silent storm began to gather over the archipelago. This crisis did not brew in the turbulent weather, but within the choices of its young women. As the outside world grew increasingly interconnected, the young women of Faroe confronted a stark reality. Their homeland offered far too few paths for them to tread. an economy tethered entirely to the fishing industry, no longer possessed the gravity to hold back modern minds. Upon high school graduation, a silent yet profound exodus began to unfold. By the thousands, young women boarded flights bound for Denmark, Norway, or the United Kingdom in pursuit of university halls and uncharted career horizons. And then, the vast majority of them made a defining choice: never to return. The aftermath left behind a surreal social landscape. Faroe plunged into the most severe deficit of women in its history. There was a period when men outnumbered women by more than 2,000, a staggering disparity for a nation of merely 50,000 souls. Numerous villages fell into a profound gender imbalance. The men of Faroe, master of the waves and resilient against the fiercest ocean storms, suddenly found themselves utterly powerless in the search for a partner to build a home on their native soil. The very future of the entire archipelago was cast into deep uncertainty as the cries of newborn infants grew increasingly rare. To salvage their future, the men of Faroe did something their ancestors could never have imagined. They sought love across digital bridges, reaching over oceans to Southeast Asia, principally to the shores of Thailand and the Philippines today. Within the remote villages nestled at the foot of the Faroes cliffs, you will encounter a striking visual. Women from the warm, sun-drenched tropics now live and work in this subarctic landscape. They have become, against all odds, the largest ethnic minority in the Faroe Islands. Imagine for a moment this surreal twist of fate. They traded golden sands, swaying coconut palms, and radiant sunshine for a world of endless winters, leaden skies, and winds fierce enough to sweep a car off the road. Those early days were a trial by fire, mastering a complex new tongue, adapting to diets of dried fish and fermented mutton, and learning to endure a cold that cuts to the bone. Yet, through the gentle grace and resilient spirit inherent in Asian women, they have breathed warmth into these cold timber homes. They infused the Faroes culture with vibrant new colors and rich flavors, and, most crucially, they breathed life back into villages that were once on the brink of extinction. Today, the narrative of Faroes women extends far beyond the story of brides from distant shores. Fueled by technological advancements and progressive government policies for gender equality, a second wave is emerging. Daughters of the Faroe Islands, after years of pursuing knowledge abroad, are finally choosing to return home. They return not because they failed to adapt to the modern world, but because they have come to realize the priceless value of the peace their homeland offers. They long for their children to grow up in a society untouched by crime, where doors remain unlocked, and where the untamed wilderness stands as a child's very first teacher. For a society to survive and forge its path into the future, it will always require trailblazers to open new horizons. Yet, it equally depends on those who stay behind to nurture its roots. Here, at the edge of the world, these women, be they daughters of Viking blood returning home, or women from distant tropical shores, are all bound by a singular shared mission. They are the invisible yet steadfast anchors, holding the vessel of Faroe steady against the turbulent storms of a changing era and continuing to write chapters of simple, serene happiness upon the proud cliffs of the Atlantic. journey has a beginning and an end. We have traveled through lands of sunshine, of smiles, and of stories told by the crackling fire. As this journey closes, it leaves behind fragments of memories safely packed in our luggage and tight embraces in place of a thank you. But for travelers, today's peace is merely the calm before a new calling. A calling from places that modern maps sometimes forget. It is also the moment another horizon begins to beckon. There is a place hidden away in the cold heart of the North Atlantic. A place where time is measured not by the ticking of a clock, but by the shifting of the fog and the fury of the storms. "18 volcanic islands emerge like pieces of a remnant ancient world, a place where humans live in harmony with harsh nature, and puffins rule the moss-covered cliffs." Welcome to the Faroe Islands. Have you ever seen a lake suspended above the ocean? In Faroe, this is where nature's illusions become reality. A place where the boundary between the still lake and the roaring sea is separated by only a precarious cliff edge. From waterfalls cascading directly into the cold sea, to green turf-roofed houses nestled deep within the valleys, everything here possesses a pristine beauty that is truly breathtaking. How could humans survive and nurture such a resilient culture through centuries of isolation? Behind that thick blanket of fog lies stories of gods, of the great ocean, and of spirits that never falter before the storm. Prepare yourself for a new journey, a journey into the heart of the wild, a place where you will find yourself tiny before nature, yet your soul will open wider than ever before. Goodbye to the old beaten paths. We will meet again, amidst the misty ocean. Many people call Faroe the end of the world. Standing on the edge of these sheer cliffs, looking out into the vast expanse of the North Atlantic, you will understand why they say so. Ahead, there are no more trails, no more skyscrapers, no more frantic sounds of artificial civilization. There is only the most primitive boundary between the great earth and the deep ocean. But the end of the old world is actually the beginning of another. A place where all the noise in your mind is forced to stop, making way for the absolute stillness of the soul. When you walk to the very edge of the land, you do not disappear. You are simply standing before a new chapter, vaster and freer.